This is CNN Breaking News.
A small community grieving the day after a deadly accident.
We choose to go to the moon.
And without a doubt, there are many people who were impacted by this.
It's speculated that
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
I have a dream that one day, even
they believe the American people will pull a John Boehner and roll over. They're wrong.
Media. It influences us, entertains us, makes us laugh, and makes us cry.
About 26 innocent lives lost and damaged.
It's how we keep up with the modern world, and how we gain insight on popular events. But have we noticed as a society how media has changed over time? While the newspaper is quickly losing sales and popularity, the internet is now thriving as our source for the news. So the question is, how do media outlets adapt to these changes?
Now the challenge really is how to communicate with the 21st century consumer. And that consumer is just everywhere. On the tablets, on the smartphones, on TV. Consumers no longer just go to their televisions to watch news. They want to see it on everything. So we have to be able to feed, as I mentioned, the beast, because the beast is hungry. And if we don't provide the best information on all those platforms, we're not going to win. And so we're out to win. And so every day the challenge is, okay, so you have this fire. How are you going to tell it on the smartphone? How are you going to tweet it? How are you going to Facebook it? How are you going to email it? Because we know that the viewer is on all those platforms. So it's a much more challenging job now to get all that information to the people on the other side.
Media is just everywhere now. It can be found on TV, on paper, and all over the internet. But what was the transition like for the newspaper industry?
It's been a real slow transition for us in our industry, no question about that. I think we were slow to adapt. I think now, though, we're sort of all in, if you will. And I think it's a very exciting time for journalism, very exciting time for media operations and for people who gather news. You know, the thing about online is that it changes things in very profound ways. You know, we're so used to sort of a deadline structure where you write a story and then it shows up in the paper the next morning. And now we really are part of a 24/7 news cycle where the deadline is how fast can you do it? When can you get it up? When can you post it online? And I think that is very exciting, yet presents its own interesting challenges as well.
Along with media, journalism has changed as well. Deadlines are no longer the concern. Consumers want their content now. They also want the content on various platforms. Now, has this transition made a new form of journalism?
The new term of art is called multimedia journalist, which means that you have to be able to not only write a story, but also shoot the story, edit the story, upload it to Facebook and Twitter and everything in between. So again, that's just the new role of the journalist. Journalists can no longer just do one thing. We have to be able again to carry our information across all the platforms. So is it challenging? Yes. Does it change the dynamic of what we do? Yes.
Being in the media, I think it's your job to know when something's coming and know it before it. You don't want to wait until it's already in full bloom. You know, you want to catch it before it happens. You're supposed to be the media. You're supposed to be the trendsetter. You know, whether it's music or whether it's social media, whether it's online content, web designs, whatever we're using and portraying out there, we want to be at least try to be a step ahead as much as we can possibly be.
You have to learn how to adapt every day. Adaptation is not a choice, it's a way of life. Every day we have to be flexible. One day there could be a fire, the next day there could be an explosion, the next day you could be covering the mayor's tax plan. I don't know, but we have to be ready every day for whatever comes. So as the new technology was sort of brought to our attention and we began to embrace it, we just had to do it. There was no choice. The consumer demands say that if we don't keep up with Facebook and Twitter and all the other things we just don't know about, we're going to fall behind.
In the world of media, adaptation is a skill that is needed to survive. Social media has become a huge role in not just media, but in society also. With over 1 billion people on Facebook and Twitter, media outlets have needed to use these networks to their advantage.
The reality is that mobile and tablet are becoming increasingly an important part of our business. And so it's sort of understanding the differentiation there, knowing how to reach the people on their devices when they want to be reached with the kind of content they want.
Communicating is Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Tumblr and Tweeter and Twatter and whatever else there is out there.
Social media plays a lot of a bigger role into that real time, we got to know it now kind of thing. So people, who have Facebook called up they're getting the feed all the time and they're on there constantly. And so Facebook is a huge news player. The thing for us is just that we need to be in the pool. We need to have our content out there. We need to have people seeing it on there.
Now it just seems like no one has face-to-face communication. Everything's done through texting and Facebook, and I mean, people meet their future wives on Facebook, and people break up with their girlfriends on Facebook. I see it all the time. It's just, I would say that's been the biggest thing that's surprised me, is people's social interaction and how they communicate with each other.
We do breaking news alerts, we do push alerts for our apps and things like that, but we will break things on Twitter or Facebook, and or whichever one we just happen to be in at the time. We'll send it out there first, because that's how people are getting content these days. The website is one thing, the apps are another thing. But when you're talking about Twitter and Facebook, those are they're so ubiquitous and everybody has them, that's you got to be in that pool.
The other thing that I think is really fascinating about digital that we need to do a better job of taking of making the most of, taking advantage of, that we're just now starting to do, is understand all the things that you can do in the digital world that we couldn't do in print, whether it's video or audio and stand-ups, interactive graphics, full posting of documents and databases and some things like that. So the reality is that the internet really provides us with this unique opportunity to really do a much better job of providing information to our readers.
Social media is being taken advantage of by media outlets, but they must now compete through it. It is now much easier for outlets to watch the competition, but how do they stand apart?
Once you get into the digital world and you've got a website, it's all about trying to generate as many unique hits and visitors and things of that nature, and so you're always trying to come up with unique content that you can to put on your page. Videos can be a very eye-catching thing. So you start trying to figure out how to make cool videos. We interview a lot of bands and musicians and actors and famous people, which is, to me, it's much more appealing to have it on a video. It's a visual aid as opposed to just some little MP3 of an interview.
I think that the quality that we're producing here is better than our television competitors. Star has a lot of depth, does a lot of good stuff, but we beat them with immediacy a lot of times too, because they still have that. They've improved on it, but they still have that newspaper mindset that, it's not as fast, it's not as in tune with what we can do here.
We are not only watching them on the regular platforms, which is the big screens, we now have to follow them on Twitter and Facebook. And so, as you can imagine, there's been an explosion of information. And that's really been the toughest part, is that when you have Facebook and Twitter, information is moving like this. It's no longer the newscast at 5 and at 6 and 11. You're on Facebook and Twitter at 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, midnight, 1 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I mean, you folks, the consumer, is up all night. And so we have to be able to feed that information all the time.
I would say it's not so much about trying to keep our readers from going someplace else, as to give them reasons to come to our site. And I think that's all about breaking news. It's all about digital enterprise. It's all about providing things that are new and interesting, things that people can come to, whether they're features or whatever it might be.
No matter where you are, if you are watching TV, listening to the radio, or reading an article, media will be at your disposal. Media has turned into this constant, engaging factor of society, and no matter how it is advertised, all that matters is how the outlet engages the consumer.